The Mirror in Room 13. I didn't believe the stories when I first applied for the night shift at the Pinewood Inn. The job listing promised good pay, flexible hours, and free meals. Things a broke college dropout like me couldn't pass up. The catch? I'd be working alone, watching over the notoriously haunted inn. The place was small, nestled in the woods, and rarely had more than a handful of guests. Most of my duties involved sitting at the front desk, cleaning up after guests, and locking up for the night. Easy enough, I thought. But on my first day, I noticed something odd. No one ever stayed in room 13. It wasn't locked or out of service, but the manager, an older woman named Diane, made it clear. If anyone asks for room 13, don't let them have it, she said, her tone flat. Tell them it's unavailable. Why not? I asked. Diane's eyes hardened. Just follow the rules, okay? That night I made my rounds, checking the empty halls. When I passed room 13, I felt a chill creep up my spine. The brass numbers on the door gleamed faintly under the flickering fluorescent light, and I swore I heard something faint, like a whisper, coming from inside. I brushed it off. It was an old building. Creaks and drafts were normal. 2 nights later, the inn had a single guest, a quiet businessman in his 40s. The place was eerily empty as I sat at the front desk, scrolling through my phone. Around midnight, I heard it again, a whisper. It wasn't coming from the guest's room, though. It was coming from room 13. I froze, heart pounding. The sound was faint, almost melodic, like a voice just beyond the edge of hearing. "Hello?" I called, stepping closer to the door. The whisper stopped. I stared at the door for what felt like an eternity, then laughed nervously. "Get a grip, man," I muttered. But as I turned to leave, I heard it again. This time it was clearer, a woman's voice, soft and pleading. "Help me!" I bolted. The next morning I confronted Diane. "Something's wrong with room 13, I said. Her face paled. "You didn't go in, did you?" "No, but I heard—" "Don't!" She cut me off, lowering her voice. "I'm serious, Lucas. Don't open that door, don't even touch it." I wanted to press her for answers, but the look in her eyes stopped me. Still, I couldn't shake my curiosity. What was in that room? That night I brought a flashlight and a crowbar, determined to figure it out. When the inn was quiet, I made my way to room 13. My hands trembled as I slid the crowbar between the frame and the door, but the lock popped open easily. The air inside was cold, much colder than the rest of the inn. The room was dark, with only the pale moonlight filtering through the window. At first glance it looked ordinary. A bed, a desk, a chair. But then I saw it, the mirror. It was massive, taking up almost the entire wall opposite the bed. The glass was warped, the silver backing tarnished with age. As I stepped closer, I noticed my reflection didn't look quite right. It wasn't copying my movements. I raised my hand. My reflection didn't. I tilted my head. It stared straight ahead. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice shaky. My reflection grinned. I stumbled back, heart racing, but I couldn't look away. My reflection's grin widened, stretching unnaturally. Its eyes darkened, black pits that seemed to pull me in. Then it moved. It stepped forward, closer to the glass, until it pressed its palms against the inside of the mirror. "Let me out," it said. I ran, slamming the door behind me and locking it with shaking hands. The next day I confronted Diane again, demanding answers. She sighed heavily, looking like she'd aged 10 years overnight. "It started years ago," she said. "A woman checked into room 13, but she was strange, always talking to herself, staring at the mirror. One night the guests heard screaming. When we got to the room, she was gone." "Gone?" "Disappeared. But the mirror?" She trailed off, her eyes distant. "Sometimes people see her in it, or worse, something else." "Why don't you get rid of it?" I asked. "We tried. It always comes back." That night I swore I wouldn't go near room 13 again, but fate had other plans. A new guest arrived, a young woman who insisted on staying in room 13 despite my protests. "I'm not superstitious," she said with a laugh. "I'll be fine." I wanted to refuse, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. As the night wore on, I kept checking the front desk clock, waiting for her to come screaming down the hall, but nothing happened. Until 3 a.m., the fire alarm went off, blaring through the inn. I rushed to room 13, banging on the door. "Miss, are you okay?" No answer. I used my master key to open the door, and what I saw chilled me to my core. The room was empty. No luggage, no guest, just the mirror and my reflection smiling back at me. I tried to leave the room, but the door wouldn't budge. Panic set in as I banged and screamed, but no one came. Then I heard it. Whispers. Soft, overlapping voices that filled the air around me. I turned back to the mirror, and there they were, faces, dozens of them pressed against the glass, their mouths moving soundlessly. "Let us out," they whispered in unison. I stumbled back, tripping over the chair, and hit the ground hard. When I looked up, my reflection wasn't alone anymore. The young woman was in the mirror, her eyes wide with terror. She pounded on the glass, screaming silently. Then I saw something else. A dark shape, humanoid but wrong, looming behind her. It grinned. I don't know how long I was in that room. Hours? Days? Time felt meaningless as the whispers grew louder, filling my mind with their pleas. "Let us out," they begged. "Take our place." I couldn't take it anymore. I reached out, touching the mirror's cold surface. Instantly the room shifted. The faces in the mirror vanished, and I found myself standing in the hallway outside room 13. The door was closed, the inn silent. Had it all been a dream? I quit the job the next morning, refusing to stay another second in that cursed place, but the nightmare didn't end there. Every time I look in a mirror I see it. The grin. It's always wide.